Hello, Honors 100. Hope everyone had a great weekend. To start off today, just wanted to first off offer a reminder. The annotated bibliography assignment is due today. As I'm recording this, you still have a little time to upload it. I'm not sure by the time it actually is uploaded to, the video is uploaded, I should say, and the class is posted. I expect it'll probably be right about the due time, or it might be a little bit overdue. So just on the off chance, as of now, most of them are in, but there's still a fair number still to come in. So if you haven't submitted your annotated bibliography yet, please do make sure that you get on that. Similar to previous assignments, I'll be grading it on a rolling basis. So I expect some of you will probably have your scores back as soon as possibly later today and tomorrow. Some of you, it might be until later in the week. I am loosely planning to do these in sort of schedule based on when people are signed up for the workshop to submit their initial research integration. I posted the schedule below. So it's based on preferences people sent me, and then randomly assigning folks who did not send me a preference. Just because it's helpful to have my feedback on your annotated bibliography before you get your initial research integration assignment together. I'm going to try to get the people who are turning in this Friday, get theirs submitted. Hopefully again later today or tomorrow, and then for other folks again on a rolling basis, and trying to submit the people who have sooner due dates for the next assignment, get you your feedback on this assignment sooner so you have time to use it. So I hope that all makes sense, but looking forward to reviewing those. I know it's a challenging assignment, not so much in terms of difficult intellectual content, I don't think, more so just in terms of the sheer labor of getting all of those sources together, putting together those MLA formatted citations, and then just following the template to write those sentences. It's not necessarily hard to figure out, I don't think, but it can be challenging just to do that amount of work and finding the 10 sources. So I appreciate the hard work that clearly goes into that. But okay, so that being said, again, I do have the initial research integration workshop schedule posted below. Please make sure you look, find out when your due date is. I've double, triple checked this, so everyone should be on there, but on the off chance you don't see your name on that schedule, please do let me know as soon as possible. There's always a chance that I made some sort of error, and if that's the case, we want to resolve that as soon as possible to make sure you do get a due date and complete this assignment. But for this assignment, really important to get them in by 11 a.m. on your due date, because again, I'll be sharing your work with the rest of the class for them to do for their reading for next time, and then we'll discuss it in the next class. If you turn in late work that kind of holds up the entire class, I'll usually give a small grace period, like 15, 20 minutes or so. But if we don't have work in by then I'm just going to go ahead and post it. And I can't really accept late work for this one because we are doing that on a rolling basis. Everyone's kind of depending on you. I may still let you turn in the assignment and grade it individually, but I'm going to be a lot less generous with the grading in that case. So whereas if you do turn it in on time and reasonably in line with expectations, meeting the minimum page count, giving an MLA formatted works cited page, so on and so forth, you can expect an A on this assignment. And especially those people going earliest, you can expect a really high score on this assignment, frankly. But as soon as you do not turn it in on time, you're kind of sacrificing that kind of guaranteed high grade for this assignment. So I hope that this is straightforward enough for everyone. But please do let me know if you have questions. This whole workshop process, I know that in and of itself can be a little bit confusing. When we meet in person, I'm able to walk you through it a little bit more and answer questions in real time, and I know that can help resolve confusions. But please do post questions. I'll open a separate thread for questions related to this assignment. So please do post those questions if you have them about what's going on for this aspect of the class, and I'll do my best to answer them for everyone in a pretty timely way to make sure we're all able to follow what's happening. But okay, so for today's class otherwise, I want to switch the focus just to our reading for today, which I hope was a fun one for some of you. I know people have different senses of humor, so maybe not everyone found this to be funny the way that I do. But at minimum, I can't imagine this was a challenging read for much of anyone. I imagine for most folks, there's at least some part of it that we could find humorous or we could relate to or so on and so forth. So that's the first question I wanted to ask in general. What was just sort of what the heart of this story was to people, what we think Brosh is communicating, and if there are specific pieces that you most relate to or agree with, or that you strongly disagree with or don't relate to, just kind of your general reactions along those lines to the Brosh piece, and to give some context for Brosh as well. So this, I think I referenced it last time. I gave you the URL, but this started as a webcomic. It was a really popular webcomic, which led to her book deal, and it being published in the format that I scanned for all of you. Brosh, was really successful up to that point, and then disappeared for a fairly long time, close to a decade, I think. And was supposed to have a second book, but sort of, that never came, and then stopped publishing on her website at all. And it was a little bit of a mystery what had happened to her. And she's only just in the last couple months resurfaced, actually. And her second book actually is imminently coming out now. But sort of an interesting sort of, not really early internet, but certainly earlier internet kind of phenomenon when she became really popular in the 2000s, the aughts, so to speak, and then sort of vanished going into the 2010s, 2010s, and now is kind of making that comeback. But in any event, in thinking about kind of the presentation here, I've had a lot of students tell me, that, for example, they recognize certain images from this. Like they'd never really heard of the blog. They didn't know what this thing was. They never heard the name Ali Brosh. But they did, for example, know that one image of her where she's raising her fist and saying, do all the things, because it's become sort of a meme in the years to follow. So in any event, I'm just curious of, parts that stood out to folks, that resonated with folks, and kind of what we think is the heart of this story. I also wanted to talk a little bit about the mode of presentation here, because it's a very, what I would consider internet-specific kind of format that Brosh developed. It's not quite a graphic novel where, it's communicated almost in comic book sort of style. It's not a traditional essay where it's all text, but it sort of merges the two, and obviously, again, has at least intended humor at different parts of it. And I'm curious to kind of our reactions, especially, the sort of crude drawings we see here. Most of the writing and art that I kind of share with you all, I tend to think of it as being, really polished work, and it was published in kind of prestigious places, and I think it's something we can admire and draw great value from. In this case, I do feel that way about Brosh's work, but the illustrations in particular, they're not that advanced, right? Like if you gave me an hour with Microsoft Paint, I feel like I can more or less reproduce what Brosh has done here if I was asked to do so. But I think that's really intentional. Right? Because this is someone who I think, I don't know about her individual talent with illustration, but I think had the ability, certainly had kind of the exposure that I imagine she could have gotten help with this if she wanted to, and done a more polished kind of professional presentation. But I think it's a conscious choice that she does not do that. So I'm really curious about reactions to the mixed media kind of format of this essay that I've asked you to read, for lack of a better word. And again, the crude illustrations, the kind of less than polished presentation, what's up with that? How do we read that? Why do we think that Brosh chose to present her work in that way? I'm also interested in thinking about the rhetorical appeals. We talked about pathos, logos, ethos in previous classes, the emotional appeals, the logical appeals, the appeals to credibility. And I think they're all present here, right? And I think it's useful to still be thinking about these things, because even as we move to more of a formal essay writing mode with the initial research integration, that's still a key part of analysis. You're still looking at your artifact to some extent. For some of you, it's going to still be featured prominently, maybe even more prominently in this next draft. For some of you, it might fade a little bit to the background and be more like one of your research sources, but nonetheless, there's still some analytical work to be done for your original artifact, as well as maybe for your research sources, depending on the kind of research you've pulled. So still looking for that and practicing those skills, I think, is useful. So from this Ali Brosh essay, where we see those appeals come in, how is she appealing to emotion, to logic, to credibility? I think she's doing all of those things in different sorts of ways. And then I want to ask, this isn't a trick question, this is just literally from the text towards the end of it. What does Brosh do to rebel? right? Because I think a lot of this is about her sort of trying to adult. That's, I think, the verbiage that people use these days when you're trying to act sort of mature and get your life together and so on and so forth. You are adulting. I think that's largely what Brosh is doing. And yet, in the late stages of this piece, it kind of falls apart and she rebels. And what does she do there? And can we relate to that aspect of it? Why is what she chooses to do appealing to her? No wrong answers. I have sort of a very specific interpretation in my mind, but you might have other pieces that you can kind of think of here, or that you drew from the piece. So feel free to shoot off in those directions as well. But I'm going to leave it there. So this is a relatively short video lecture. I've had a lot of these video lectures go longer than I intended, so I'm going to take advantage of having already gone through the text. Not in meticulous detail, but I think it's the kind of piece that is better to let breathe and give plenty of room for you to identify spots that are of interest to you. So again, in the discussion thread below, please, well, first of all, in my text post below, please be sure to review the submission schedule for the initial research integration. Again, make sure you know where you're going. And then in the discussion thread, feel free to weigh in with questions about that assignment, reread the prompt, start getting your work together for that part of the class. And then we'll discuss the Ali Brosh piece in the other thread here. Most of you have been doing a really good job of this. Make sure you are keeping up on your participation. Again, I leave these discussion threads open for, usually it's 48 hours, and then I usually give a little bit of a grace period. I shut it off manually, but I usually give at least a half hour or so extra grace period in case you don't remember until the last minute. But make sure we're staying on top of that. Most of you are doing a great job with that, but if you do find yourself falling a little bit behind, missing some discussions, just figure out some strategies to remind yourself to do that. Schedule some time for yourself to stay on top of those responsibilities. And similarly, the reading response journals, the overwhelming majority of you now have gotten a number of them in, and they're looking really good. There's still a few folks though who haven't gotten any journal responses from, or only got just that first one. Really encourage you to get at least that first one in to make sure that you're on the right track for this thing. Again, it's a totally separate thing from the class discussion thread. So I know sometimes with an online class, people get confused and think they're the same thing. They're totally separate parts of the class discussions, reading response journals. Let me know if you're confused about that aspect of the class. I've reached out individually to folks who I haven't seen work from, but again, if you're just confused about what's going on there, send me an email, schedule a time for us to have a video conference if you'd like. I'm happy to schedule those throughout the week, but make sure we're staying on top of those pieces. Okay, I'm going to wrap it up there. So thank you very much, everyone, for watching, and I'll catch you next time.